The doors to the Galactic Council chamber opened with a soft hiss. Commander Jake Morrison walked through them with steady steps. His dark blue uniform looked plain next to all the bright colors and strange materials worn by the alien beings around him. Admiral Lisa Kane followed behind him. She carried a metal case in her hands. Inside that case were the plans and samples of human weapons. These weapons would decide if humans could join the Galactic Military Alliance or not. The chamber was huge. It stretched up so high that Jake could barely see the ceiling. 12 different alien species sat in a circle around the center floor. Each group had their own section with chairs or platforms that fit their body types. Jake had studied these aliens for months before coming here. The Zilithians looked like giant crystals that could walk and talk. They were 8 feet tall and their bodies sparkled with blue and green light. The Corvani looked like metal insects the size of horses. Their 6 arms moved quickly as they talked to each other in clicking sounds. There were others too. The Aquari floated in water tanks and had tentacles instead of arms. The Pyrans glowed like small suns and never seemed to sit still. Each species thought they were the most advanced in the galaxy. Jake walked to the center of the room. A platform rose from the floor under his feet. Now he stood high enough for all the aliens to see him clearly. The noise in the room got quieter as they all turned to look at the human. A Zilithian stepped forward. His crystal body was bigger than the others and had more colors in it. This was Admiral Zeth Ka, the leader of their military forces. "So you are the humans?" Zeth Ka said. His voice came from speakers around the room since humans could not hear the sounds he really made. "You wish to join our alliance and fight beside us?" Jake nodded. "Yes, Admiral. Earth wants to help protect the galaxy from threats. We bring our military knowledge and our weapons to share with you." Several aliens made sounds that the translators turned into laughter. A Corvani general named Click Thane moved his metal arms in a way that meant he was not impressed. "Show us these weapons you speak of," Click Thane said. "We will see what primitive tools you have made." Admiral Kane stepped forward and opened her case. She pulled out a rifle that looked like the ones human soldiers had used for hundreds of years. It was black metal with a wooden stock. Next to all the glowing and floating weapons of the aliens, it looked very old and simple. Jake picked up the rifle. "This is our basic infantry weapon. It fires a metal bullet using chemical explosives. The bullet travels at about 800 meters per second." The aliens looked at each other. Some made the sounds that meant they were confused or disappointed. A Pyran scientist named Flamesinger floated closer. His bright body hurt to look at directly. "Chemical explosives, metal projectiles. These are technologies from the Stone Age of warfare." Zeth Ka pointed one of his crystal arms at the rifle. "Our weapons fire plasma that can melt through 3 feet of steel. The temperature is hotter than the surface of most stars." Click Thane's metal body rattled as he moved. "Our disruptor beams can break apart atoms themselves. We can make any target simply stop existing." Admiral Kane pulled out more weapons from the case. There was a pistol, a larger rifle, and even a small cannon shell. Each one worked the same, basic way. They all used explosions to push metal objects very fast toward a target. Dr. Alex Carter stepped up beside Jake. He was the human expert on weapons technology. His job was to explain how human weapons worked and why they were good. "I know our weapons look simple," Alex said, "but they have advantages that energy weapons do not have. They work in any environment. They cannot be stopped by electromagnetic shields. The bullets keep going until they hit something solid." A tall alien with blue skin and 4 eyes laughed. This was General Vexnor from the Centauri Republic. "Why would we use such crude tools when we have perfected energy manipulation? Watch this." General Vexnor pulled out a weapon that looked like it was made of liquid silver. When he pressed a control, a beam of bright red light shot across the room. It hit a metal target and made it glow white-hot before melting it completely. The other aliens made approving sounds. Their weapons were clearly much more powerful and impressive than anything the humans had brought. Jake tried to explain more about human tactics and strategy, but the aliens were not interested. They had already decided that human weapons were too old and weak to be useful. Admiral Zeth Ka spoke for the whole council. "We will accept humans into our alliance. but you will serve in support roles only. Your primitive weapons are not suitable for real combat against advanced enemies." The other aliens agreed. They gave humans jobs like carrying supplies, fixing ships, and guarding empty space stations. The important fighting would be done by species with proper energy weapons. Lisa. Kane felt frustrated, but she kept her voice calm. "We understand your decision. Humans will serve wherever we are needed most." The meeting was over. The aliens went back to talking among themselves about their advanced weapons and battle plans. They did not notice Jake and his team packing up their simple guns and leaving the great chamber. As they walked back to their ship, Alex shook his head. "They think newer always means better, but sometimes the old ways work best." Jake looked back at the council building. "Maybe someday they will learn that lesson. I just hope it does not cost too many lives when they do." None of them knew that. Very soon, the galaxy would face an enemy that would make all their energy weapons useless. When that day came, the simple metal bullets in Jake's rifle would be worth more than all the plasma cannons and disruptor beams in the alien fleets. 6 months had passed since the humans joined the Galactic Alliance. Captain Ryan Torres sat in the command chair of the UNS Defender. His ship was small compared to the alien warships, but it was fast and could travel long distances without stopping. Ryan had brown hair that was starting to turn gray at the sides. He had been in space for 15 years and knew how to read the instruments that most people found confusing. Today he was doing what humans always did in the Alliance. He was patrolling empty space far from any important planets. Lieutenant Kelly Brooks sat at the weapons station. She was 28 years old and had joined the Space Navy right after college. Her job was to watch for pirates or smugglers, but she rarely found anything exciting. The aliens handled all the real fighting with their advanced energy weapons. Behind them, Danny Walsh worked at the sensor controls. He was good with computers and could make the ship's scanners see farther than they were supposed to. Danny was thin and wore glasses that he pushed up his nose when he concentrated hard on something. The three of them had worked together for 2 years. They knew each other well and could do their jobs without talking much. Today felt like any other boring patrol day until Danny saw something strange on his screen. "Captain, I am getting some weird readings out here," Danny said. He tapped his screen with one finger. "There are objects moving toward us from outside the galaxy. They are really far away but moving very fast." Ryan turned his chair to look at Danny's station. "How many objects? Are they ships?" Danny worked with his controls for a few minutes. The numbers on his screen kept changing. "I count at least 50 ships, maybe more. They are unlike anything in our database. The computer cannot identify what they are made of." Kelly looked up from her weapons panel. "Should we call for backup? If those are hostile ships, we cannot handle 50 enemies by ourselves." Ryan thought about it. The human patrol ships only had basic kinetic weapons, a few machine guns and some small missiles. If these unknown ships were dangerous, the Defender would not last long in a fight. "Send a message to Fleet Command," Ryan said. "Tell them what we found and ask for orders. Then keep watching those ships. I want to know everything about them." Lieutenant Amy Rogers was the communications officer. She sat at a station covered with radio equipment and computer screens. Amy had short red hair and always wore her headset even when she was not talking to anyone. Amy sent the message to the Galactic Fleet headquarters. The answer came back in 10 minutes. The alien commanders wanted the humans to keep watching but stay far away from the unknown ships. If there was going to be a fight, the real warships with energy weapons would handle it. 3 hours later, the unknown fleet was close enough for the Defender's cameras to see them clearly. What they saw made everyone on the bridge feel cold and scared. The ships were completely black. They seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. Their shape was strange too. They looked like normal spaceships from some angles, but from other angles they seemed to fade away or become transparent. "I have never seen anything like this," Danny said. His voice was quiet because he was afraid to speak too loud. These ships seemed to exist in normal space and somewhere else at the same time. The alien fleet arrived 2 hours after the unknown ships entered the solar system. Admiral Zethka commanded the galactic forces from his flagship, a huge crystal ship that was 3 miles long. The Corvani brought their metal warships that looked like giant insects with wings. Ships from 6 other alien species flew with them. Ryan watched through his ship's telescopes as the two fleets faced each other. The alien ships were beautiful and impressive. They glowed with energy and had weapons that could destroy planets. The black ships just floated in space like holes cut out of reality itself. Admiral Zeth Ka sent a message to the unknown fleet. He demanded that they identify themselves and explain why they had entered galactic space without permission. The black ships did not answer. The alien admiral waited 5 minutes for a response. When none came, he gave the order to attack. The galactic fleet opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons sent streams of fire hot enough to melt asteroids. Quantum disruptors shot beams that could unmake atoms. Energy weapons of 12 different types lit up space with colors that had no names. Ryan and his crew watched in amazement as the most powerful weapons in the galaxy fired at the black ships. The light show was incredible. It looked like a dozen. Stars had exploded at the same time. But when the light faded, the black ships were still there. They had not been damaged at all. The energy beams had passed right through them like they were shooting at ghosts. "That is impossible," Kelly said. She stared at her screen in disbelief. "Those weapons can destroy anything. How are those ships still floating?" Danny checked his sensors again and again. The energy weapons are not touching them at all. It is like the black ships exist in a different dimension where energy cannot reach them. Admiral Zeth Ka must have been thinking the same thing. He ordered his ships to fire again with even more power. The second attack was twice as strong as the first. Beams of energy that could cut through moons struck the black fleet. Again, nothing happened. The mysterious ships absorbed or avoided every energy weapon that hit them. Then the black ships began to move forward. They did not fire any weapons that the human sensors could detect. But one by one, the alien warships began to explode. The Corvani flagship broke apart in the middle. The Piran cruisers went dark and started floating dead in space. Even Admiral Zeth Ka's crystal ship began to crack and lose its glow. Amy received frantic radio messages from the alien fleet. Panic filled the voices of commanders who had never lost a battle before. Their most advanced weapons were useless, and they had no idea how to fight an enemy they could not hurt. Ryan made a decision that would change everything. "Send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we are moving closer to get a better look at these ships. If the aliens cannot hurt them with energy weapons, maybe our old kinetic guns will work better." The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council happened 3 days after the first battle with the black ships. Admiral Lisa Kane sat at a small table in the corner of the Great Chamber. The aliens who had once looked down on human weapons now looked scared and confused. Admiral Zeth Ka's crystal body had cracks running through it from the battle. His voice sounded weaker than before when he spoke to the council. "3 of our core worlds have fallen," he said. "The enemy destroyed our defenses like they were made of paper. Billions of lives have been lost. Our most powerful weapons cannot touch these ships." Clickthane, the Corvani general, made clicking sounds that the translators turned into words of despair. "We have tried everything. Plasma cannons, disruptor, beams, quantum torpedoes. Nothing works. The enemy ships phase through our attacks like they do not exist in the same reality as us." Commander Jake Morrison stood up from the human table. His voice was calm and steady. "Admiral Kane and I would like to volunteer the human fleet for frontline duty." The aliens turned to look at him. Some made sounds of surprise. Others seemed confused by his offer. General Vex Nor, the blue-skinned alien with 4 eyes, spoke. "First, Commander Morrison, we appreciate your courage. But if our advanced weapons cannot hurt these enemies, how can your primitive kinetic weapons succeed?" Dr. Alex Carter walked forward carrying his computer tablet. He had spent the last 3 days studying the battle recordings. His findings could change everything. "May I explain something about physics?" Alex asked. The council chamber became quiet so everyone could hear him. "Your energy weapons exist in what we call the electromagnetic spectrum," Alex said. "Light, heat, plasma, quantum energy. They are all forms of electromagnetic radiation. The enemy ships have learned to phase shift away from electromagnetic attacks." He pressed a button on his tablet. A holographic display appeared above the council chamber. It showed waves of energy passing through a ship without touching it. But kinetic weapons are different, Alex continued. Bullets, missiles, and shells exist in normal space-time. They have mass and momentum. You cannot phase-shift matter the same way you can phase-shift energy. Admiral Zethka leaned forward. His cracked crystal body sparkled with interest. Are you saying that physical projectiles might be able to damage these ships? Alex nodded. That is exactly what I am saying. The enemy has evolved beyond energy weapons, but they may have forgotten how to defend against simple physical attacks. The council chamber filled with the sounds of aliens talking to each other in their own languages. Some seemed hopeful for the first time since the black ships arrived. Others still doubted that human weapons could work where alien technology had failed. Captain Nick Sullivan entered the chamber wearing his dress uniform. Behind him came his senior officers from the human destroyer squadron. These were the ships that would test the theory about kinetic weapons. Nick was a tall man with gray hair and scars on his hands from years of military service. He commanded 3 destroyers, the UNS Titan, the UNS Ranger, and the UNS Guardian. Each ship carried the weapons that aliens had called museum pieces. My ships are ready for combat, Nick announced to the council. We have railguns that can fire tungsten slugs at 15 kilometers per second. We have missile launchers loaded with explosive warheads. And we have good old-fashioned bullets if we need them. Gunnery Chief Rachel Kim stood beside Captain Sullivan. She was an expert on human weapons systems and had trained for 15 years to use them in space combat. Her job was to make sure every shot counted when the battle started. Navigator Paul Johnson carried star charts showing where the enemy fleet was moving. The black ships were heading toward the capital world of the Galactic Alliance. If they were not stopped soon, the center of galactic civilization would fall. Admiral Kane addressed the council one more time. We know this is a risk. Human ships are smaller and less protected than your warships. But we have weapons that might work when energy weapons fail. Give us a chance to prove it. The vote was close, but the council agreed to let humans lead the next attack. They had no other options left to try. 2 days later, the human destroyer squadron approached the enemy fleet. Captain Sullivan sat in his command chair watching the black ships on his screen. Up close, they looked even stranger than before. They seemed to flicker between existing and not existing. Rachel Kim powered up the Titan's main railgun. The weapon was simple compared to alien technology. It used magnetic fields to accelerate a metal slug down a long barrel. No energy beams, no quantum effects, just pure kinetic force. Target the lead enemy ship, Sullivan ordered. Range is 12,000 kilometers. Fire when ready. Rachel checked her targeting computer one more time. The crosshairs lined up on the biggest black ship. She pressed the firing button. The railgun fired with a sound like thunder. A tungsten slug the size of a telephone pole shot out of the barrel at incredible speed. It crossed the distance between the ships in less than 2 seconds. The slug hit the black ship right in the center. Instead of passing through like energy weapons did, the physical projectile punched a hole clean through the enemy hull. Atmosphere and strange fluids sprayed out into space. The black ship shuddered and began to list to one side. Lights flickered on its surface for the first time since anyone had seen these vessels. Direct hit, Rachel shouted. The enemy ship is damaged. Captain Sullivan smiled for the first time in days. All ships open fire. Let us show these aliens what human weapons can really do. The 3 human destroyers unleashed everything they had. Railgun slugs, explosive missiles, and armor-piercing rounds filled the space between the fleets. Each shot that hit its target caused real damage to the enemy ships. For the first time since the black ships arrived, the mysterious enemy fleet began to retreat. The weapons that aliens had called primitive were the only things in the galaxy that could hurt them. The news of the human victory spread through the galactic fleet faster than light-speed communications. Commander Beth Stone stood on the bridge of her cruiser, the UNS Defiance, reading reports from Captain Sullivan's destroyer squadron. 3 black ships had been destroyed and 5 more were damaged badly enough to retreat. Beth had served in the human navy for 12 years. She was known for her tactical skills and her ability to think quickly under pressure. The alien commanders who had ignored human advice for months were now asking for her help. Her communications officer, Greg Martinez, looked up from his station. Commander, We are receiving requests from 8 different alien fleets. They all want to know how our weapons work and if we can help them fight the black ships. Beth turned to her systems analyst, Tina Lee. Tina was a computer expert who could figure out how to connect human technology with alien systems. This skill would be very important in the coming battle. Can we mount our railguns on alien ships? Beth asked. Their vessels are bigger and have better shields than ours. If we can give them kinetic weapons, we might have a real chance against the enemy. Tina studied the technical specifications on her screen. It will not be easy, but yes, the Corvani ships have strong metal hulls that can handle the recoil from our weapons. The Zilithian crystal ships might crack, but we could mount smaller guns on them. Admiral Zethka appeared on the main communication screen. His crystal body still had cracks from the earlier battle, but his voice sounded stronger than before. He was no longer the proud alien who had dismissed human weapons. Now he was desperate for any help he could get. Commander Stone, we need your expertise, Zethka said. The enemy has regrouped and is moving toward our capital system. We have less than 6 hours before they arrive. Can your people help us prepare our ships? Beth nodded. We can try, Admiral, but we will need to work fast and trust each other, completely. The next few hours were the busiest in the history of the Galactic Alliance. Human engineers worked alongside alien technicians to retrofit warships with kinetic weapons. It was dangerous work because no one had ever tried to combine these different technologies before. Chief Engineer Carl Davis supervised the work on the Corvani flagship. Carl was a big man with strong hands who had been fixing spaceships for 20 years. He knew that one mistake could destroy the entire vessel. His assistant, Maria Rodriguez, helped translate the human weapon manuals into languages the aliens could understand. Maria was young but very smart. She could explain complicated technical ideas in simple words that everyone could follow. The Corvani engineers were confused by human technology at first. Their weapons used complex energy systems with thousands of moving parts. Human railguns had only a few dozen components and worked on basic physics principles. Your weapons are so simple, Clickthane said as he watched Carl install a railgun on his ship. How can something this basic be effective in modern warfare? Carl tightened a bolt with his wrench. Sometimes simple is better, General. Energy. Weapons have many things that can break or malfunction. Kinetic weapons just need to throw something heavy very fast. That has worked for humans for thousands of years. On the Zilithian ships, the installation was more difficult. The crystal hulls were beautiful but fragile. Dr. Alex Carter worked with Zilithian scientists to find ways to mount smaller kinetic weapons without damaging their vessels. We cannot use full-sized railguns, Alex explained to the crystal beings, but we can install magnetic accelerator cannons. They fire smaller projectiles but still use kinetic energy to cause damage. The enemy fleet arrived exactly when the sensors predicted. This time there were more black ships than before. The mysterious vessels had called for reinforcements after their first defeat. Captain Steve Hunter commanded the combined fleet from his destroyer, the UNS Vanguard. Steve was a veteran spacefighter who had trained other officers in combat tactics. Now he faced the biggest challenge of his career. His weapons officer, Jason Park, reported that all human ships were ready for battle. Jason was calm under pressure and never missed his targets. Today he would need all of his skills to coordinate the attack. All ships, this is Captain Hunter, Steve announced over the fleet communication system. Remember, the enemy cannot phase through physical attacks. Aim for the largest ships first and keep firing until they stop moving. The battle began when the black ships moved into attack formation. But this time the Galactic fleet was ready for them. Every ship now carried some type of kinetic weapon alongside their energy systems. The first volley was devastating. Tungsten, slugs from human railguns punched through enemy hulls. Explosive missiles from Corvani ships erupted against black armor. Even the small accelerator cannons on Zilithian vessels caused visible damage. The black ships tried to use their dimensional phasing to avoid the attacks. Energy weapons still passed harmlessly through them. But the physical projectiles found their targets every time. Captain Hunter watched as 3 enemy ships exploded under the combined kinetic bombardment. The mysterious fleet that had seemed invincible was now taking heavy losses. But the black ships were not helpless. They began firing their own strange weapons at the Galactic fleet. These attacks could not be phased away from. They hit with tremendous force and destroyed several alien vessels. The battle continued for 2 hours. Ships from both sides were lost, but the Galactic fleet was winning. The combination of human kinetic weapons and alien technology was more effective than anyone had hoped. Jason Park lined up his targeting system on the largest enemy vessel. It was 3 times bigger than any other black ship and seemed to be commanding the enemy fleet. Target acquired, Jason reported. Firing main railgun. The tungsten slug flew across space and struck the command ship directly in what looked like its bridge section. The massive vessel shuddered, then began to break apart. With their command ship destroyed, the remaining black ships retreated into the darkness beyond the galaxy. The mysterious enemy had been defeated by weapons they had considered primitive and useless. The Galactic fleet had learned an important lesson about the value of simple, reliable technology. The Great Council chamber looked very different than it had 8 months ago. Admiral Lisa Kane walked through the same doors where humans had once been dismissed as primitive. Now she wore the golden badge of the Supreme Fleet Commander, the highest military position in the Galactic Alliance. The alien representatives who had once laughed at human weapons now stood when she entered the room. Admiral Zethka's crystal body had been repaired and strengthened with human metal supports. The cracks were still visible, but they no longer weakened him. Instead, they served as reminders of the lessons learned in battle. Jake Morrison followed, behind Admiral Kane. He now held the title of Strategic Defense Coordinator. His job was to make sure that all Alliance worlds could defend themselves against future threats. The weapons he carried were no longer called museum pieces. The Council chamber buzzed with excited conversation. Representatives from 50 different worlds had come to hear about the new military doctrine that would protect the galaxy. What had started as human stubbornness had become the foundation of galactic defense. Dr. Alex Carter stood at the center of the chamber holding a device that looked like a simple metal tube. This was the Mark VII Kinetic Accelerator, the latest version of human projectile technology. It was small enough for one person to carry, but powerful enough to damage enemy starships. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings, Alex began. Today we officially adopt the Combined Arms Doctrine for all Alliance military forces. This system uses both kinetic and energy weapons to handle any type of enemy we might face. Click Thane, the Corvani general, raised one of his metal arms. Dr. Carter, our weapons engineers have studied your designs for months. We still do not understand why simple projectiles work better than our quantum disruptors. Alex smiled. He had answered this question many times, but he never got tired of explaining it. General, your quantum weapons are incredibly advanced. They can manipulate matter at the atomic level, but that is also their weakness. An enemy who masters dimensional phasing can avoid quantum effects. They cannot avoid a chunk of metal flying at them at high speed. The Piran scientist, Flamesinger, glowed brighter as he spoke. The humans have taught us that advancement does not always mean discarding old methods. Sometimes the ancient ways work best against new threats. Commander Jake Morrison stepped forward to address the council. The black ships were not the first enemy to surprise us, and they will not be the last. We must be ready for anything. That means keeping weapons that work, even if they seem old-fashioned. Colonel Julie Adams entered the chamber carrying training materials for the new weapons programs. Julie had been promoted to head the Galactic Defense Training Academy. Her job was to teach alien soldiers how to use kinetic weapons effectively. We have completed the first class of mixed-species combat units, Julie reported. Corvani soldiers are excellent with railguns because their mechanical bodies can handle the recoil. Zilithian troops work well with precision projectile weapons that require steady aim. Behind Julie came a group of alien soldiers wearing human-designed armor and carrying kinetic weapons. They moved with confidence and discipline. These were the first graduates of the combined training program. A young Aquari floated in his water tank, holding a specially designed underwater projectile launcher. His name was Wave Dancer, and he had been the top student in his class. The weapon fired metal darts that could penetrate enemy armor even while underwater. Admiral Kane looked around the chamber at all the alien faces watching her. 6 months ago, these same beings had thought humans were too primitive to fight real battles. Now they trusted human judgment on military matters more than their own traditional strategies. The combined arms doctrine is more than just a new way to fight, Kane said. It represents a new way of thinking. We no longer assume that newer technology is always better technology. We keep what works and improve what does not. Engineer Pete Collins walked forward carrying blueprints for the next generation of weapons. Pete had worked with alien scientists to create hybrid systems that combined the best of both technologies. His designs used alien materials to make human weapons even more effective. Our new projectile weapons use zilithian crystal components for targeting systems, Pete explained. We use Corvani metal alloys for the projectiles themselves. The result is a weapon that is both simple and incredibly precise. Dr. Ann Foster, the xenobiologist, had spent months studying the black ships after the war ended. She had discovered important information about how they worked and why kinetic weapons could hurt them. The enemy had evolved beyond energy-based physics, Ann reported. They could exist in multiple dimensions at the same time, but matter is matter, regardless of which dimension you exist in. Physical objects affect all realities equally. The Council voted unanimously to make the Combined Arms Doctrine the official military policy of the Galactic Alliance. Every world would now have both energy and kinetic weapons for defense. No enemy would ever again find them completely helpless. Admiral Zethka spoke for all the alien representatives. We apologize for our earlier arrogance. Humans have taught us that wisdom often comes in simple forms. Your museum pieces saved our civilization. Jake Morrison shook his head. They were never museum pieces, Admiral. They were tools waiting for the right job. Every technology has its place and purpose. The key is knowing when to use each one. The ceremony ended with the presentation of new Alliance battle flags. Each flag showed both an energy weapon and a kinetic weapon crossed together. This symbol would remind future generations that true strength comes from combining different approaches, not from abandoning old wisdom for new ideas. As the representatives left the chamber, Admiral Kane looked at the simple rifle that had started everything. It sat in a place of honor next to the most advanced alien energy weapons. No one would ever again call it a museum piece. The galaxy was safer because humans had refused to abandon the weapons their ancestors had trusted. Sometimes, the oldest solutions really were the best ones.